Autonomous agents operating in fluid environments, real-time processing of complex sensor data from across a disaster zone, intelligence scaling faster than human institutions can track. The capabilities of the intelligence age are already arriving at the doorstep of emergency operations centers. Across the Homeland Security and Emergency Management enterprise, senior leaders are treating these arriving systems as a simple software upgrade, a faster way to process intelligence reports, or a more efficient tool for dispatch units. This framing is dangerously small. This chart tracks the trajectory of the operational environment. The top curve tracks technological capability over time, rising exponentially. The bottom line tracks institutional readiness. It remains entirely flat. The widening space between them is where vulnerabilities compound and operations fail. Processing artificial intelligence through standard IT procurement models guarantees an operational collapse. When an agency attempts to map hyper-advanced predictive capabilities onto static, legacy protocols, the readiness structure fractures under the weight of the technology. In 2001, the Homeland Security apparatus faced a similar crisis of scale. The attacks exposed a completely fragmented intelligence sharing and emergency response environment. The capability to share data existed, but the institutions did not. The ensuing reform period proved that deploying advanced capabilities without completely redesigning institutions produces nothing but fragmentation. Joint operations and fusion centers required entirely new doctrine and new workforce competencies to function. Integrating artificial intelligence requires a structural shift equal in magnitude to the rollout of the National Incident Management System. It demands rewriting the National Response Framework and state emergency operations plans to account for AI decision support. Continuing to treat AI as a technology procurement issue ensures that emergency management agencies will be shaped by algorithms rather than actively shaping those systems to protect life safety. When OpenAI published its industrial policy framework, it established building an open economy and ensuring shared prosperity as a foundational pillar. This matrix translates these economic principles into emergency management doctrine. Open economy becomes adaptive enterprise, and shared prosperity demands shared capability. This establishes a right to AI policy. Baseline AI must be guaranteed to all jurisdictions, regardless of their budget. Every new deployment must pass a strict equity test. Can a minimally staffed rural emergency management agency access the exact same predictive capabilities as a highly funded major urban center? Current adoption trends fail this test. Advanced drones as first responders, or DFR programs, which use autonomous flight and real-time analysis, are currently isolated almost entirely within well-funded urban police departments. Correcting this requires federally subsidized deployment and the creation of shared regional infrastructure frameworks. Advanced AI equipment must function under a system identical to existing mutual aid agreements. Technically, this means bypassing new, isolated software suites. Baseline AI must be integrated into trusted networks practitioners already use, platforms like the Team Awareness Kit, systems like Web EOC, and the Public Alert System. Permitting capability gaps to persist between urban centers and tribal or rural communities breaks the interoperability of the entire national disaster response network. The second foundational pillar of the OpenAI framework requires building a resilient society, structured around strict accountability and active risk management. Translated for public safety, this demands building resilient operations, architectures designed specifically to withstand the time compression and stress of high-stakes disaster environments. This diagram outlines the non-negotiable boundary condition. When an algorithm generates an evacuation order, it hits a mandatory hard stop for human-in-the-loop review. AI integration divides into 3 lanes. Advisory requires review, assisted allows instant override, and autonomous is strictly locked out of life safety functions. To enforce these boundaries, the Department of Homeland Security must develop an AI safety framework modeled exactly on the protocols of the aviation industry. This requires adopting high-reliability organization principles. Agencies must implement continuous operational monitoring and enforce mandatory, non-punitive near-miss reporting whenever an AI tool produces a misleading output. Operations also require strict model containment playbooks. When an AI-enabled predictive network goes down during an active chemical release or hurricane response, responders must have immediate documented fallback protocols for degraded operations. In life safety operations, trust cannot be derived from a vendor's software guarantee. It is engineered entirely through rigorous safety doctrines and absolute human oversight. The standard technology governance framework carries a critical blind spot. It assumes the operational environment is merely complicated and will behave exactly as designed. The Sinafin matrix splits environments into two categories. In a complicated domain, cause and effect are discoverable, allowing pre-planned governance. But Homeland Security operates in the complex domain, defined by dynamic threats, cascading failures, and incomplete information acting under extreme time pressure. This creates the complexity trap. Deploying a deterministic AI system into a complex disaster zone produces catastrophic overconfidence, ultimately leading to systemic failure. Surviving the complex domain requires a specific governance patch. Operations must follow 3 steps: probe, sense, and respond. Instead of guessing at rules in advance, agencies must deploy AI tools and controlled operational probes. They observe the actual emergent behaviors of the system and adjust governance dynamically based on physical reality, not theoretical models. Agencies cannot safely adopt AI by governing for order. They must govern for emergence, assuming the systems will produce unexpected behaviors that demand real-time adaptation. Moving from the theory of complex governance to the physical reality of execution on the ground reveals a highly compressed timeline. This action matrix outlines the required timeline for aligning policy, institutions, and personnel. Looking specifically at the next 12 months, the enterprise faces 3 immediate mandates. First, FEMA and state emergency management agencies must formally update the National Response Framework. AI integration must be codified as a doctrinal priority, completely separate from IT procurement. Second, state legislatures and DHS must legally encode human-in-the-loop constraints for all life safety algorithms and force deploying agencies to publish their operating specifications. Third, training academies must integrate AI operational literacy into their core professional development. Responders must be trained to evaluate outputs and recognize failure modes with the exact same rigor as incident command system training. The window of opportunity is rapidly closing. These capabilities are already being funded and procured. The timeline for institutional adaptation is measured in months, not years. Inaction guarantees that deployment will be highly fragmented, completely inequitable, and dictated by the capabilities of technology vendors rather than operational needs of public safety professionals. Survival in the intelligence age requires executing 4 specific actions: frame the transformation correctly, distribute capability equitably, build for strict resilience, and adapt operations through complexity. The intelligence age is arriving regardless of institutional readiness. The enterprise must shape its own doctrinal response to ensure when predictive models fail and lives are on the line, human judgment remains the ultimate authority.